But I really don't have any regrets. I really don't. I've lived exactly how I've wanted to. I've tried my hardest every single time. I didn't win the matches that maybe I should have always won, but I really gave it my all. So that for me is enough.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the Body Serve. This is our second episode this week, and we are here because Roland Garros is upon us. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm James. I feel like we were just here.
We really were.
Sitting my ass in the same chair not 3 days ago.
We didn't even bother put away the equipment because this was happening so soon.
Mm-hmm. So, draw ceremony was today. I was able to sneak a peek while I was at work, sitting at my desk.
Sneak a peek? Mm-hmm. It looked like you were watching the entire damn thing.
I was. And screen capping.
Are you doing any work?
It was on my lunch hour.
You were texting me updates like, Serena gets Kristina Pliskova. I'm like, dude, I'm watching it.
I'm so bad. I thought you were at work.
Yeah.
I don't even
Evidence number 2000 that he doesn't listen to me.
No. Yeah, it was a well-organized event, I thought. It wasn't, super exciting. It wasn't popping, but it was well done.
Do you remember how bad the Australian Open one was?
Yes.
That was like 85% men's coverage and 15% women, and it dragged on forever. This was not that.
Right. I appreciated it was to the point, but they actually did show the screens kind of enough to get an idea of what was going on.
And after it was done, they went and recapped the whole thing. They showed you the sections again.
Mm-hmm. So here's what we're going to do on this episode. We have solicited questions from you all. We got some wonderful questions via email and on Twitter. So we're kind of going to go through the draws with the aid of these questions. And I think we'll do a deeper dive in the draw after that.
Mm-hmm. Apologies to Ian. Your question came in a bit too late for us to do the requisite research to answer your question about Bianca
Andreescu.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So next episode. The answer is no, we don't know anything about her yet.
The first question, Master Ace sent in this question via email, and Mara Lawson sent us a similar question as well, inquiring as to who we have as dark horses in the men and women's draws.
So let's start with the women, because we're going to kind of go through the women's draw first. My first one is Carlos Suarez Navarro.
Okay.
I think she's been showing signs of life lately. She beat Stritsova and Svitolina in Madrid. And I know it's a home crowd, and she was getting really pumped up. And she is, aside from Muguruza, kind of the Spanish lady boss these days, right? Her game is so fascinating. It's beautiful to watch. I think she's got a shot.
If that were to happen, I'd be very happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan. I enjoy her game. This much has been documented. I don't know if that will quite happen this time.
I'm not saying to win, but to make a little noise. And I don't think her section is impossible. Kazatkina and Wozniacki are in there, but I don't know. You never know. Kazatkina hasn't had an incredible clay season. Not a bad one, but just not as great as I thought it was going to be.
I have Laura Siegemund as one of my dark horse picks.
Siegemund?
C. That is if, and this is a big if, she's healthy enough.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's got a fairly open section for somebody of her ranking at this point.
Uh-huh.
She's got Rybarikova.
Do you want to talk about her first round, though?
I'm getting there. There's Rybarikova, and then her first round match is Coco Vandeweghe, who, after making the final in Stuttgart, has done 0.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Two first round losses.
Yes, and it might just be a third first round loss on the trot for Colleen. If there were to be a prediction, that would be mine.
Okay.
And moving past that, she's also in that little section there with Muguruza, who has a tough first round match against Svetlana Kuznetsova.
Mm-hmm.
And Muguruza has not been doing anything this clay court season.
Very little.
Obviously, she's a past champion, so she has that pedigree. She has the pedigree regardless of the surface, and she could do anything on any given day. But if I'm to pick a dark horse, it's Siegemund from that section. Also, I'm going to go with Kasatkina as my other dark horse.
You know, I actually had her here too.
Oh, you did? And you...
I kind of contradicted myself.
Yeah. We've seen her make the final in Charleston last year, losing to Ostapenko. She had that breakthrough win, well, not a win, a finals appearance at Indian Wells this year, losing to Naomi Osaka. And on that slow surface, we all got the impression, or cemented, or supposition, that she should be very good on clay. While she hasn't had the breakout result thus far, this could be it for her.
I like that. I like, man, that backhand. Like, I just want to see everything she can do with it on clay.
And if you look at her section, you talked about that's where Carla is. But then, okay, say she gets past Kanepi in the first round. She'll then play either Tatiana Maria or Kirsten Flipkins in the second round before getting CSN in the third round, and then potentially Wozniacki in the fourth round. And we know that Wozniacki hasn't had the best history at Roland Garros. She also has number one to play for this tournament.
She does. I mean, she made the quarterfinals last year, which I believe was the first time she had reached the quarters in Paris. I could be wrong. And she lost to the eventual champ Ostapenko. She didn't play in Stuttgart, in Charleston, in Prague. She didn't play until Madrid, basically.
She'd been suffering from injuries as well. So she too comes in with some questions.
Right. And I mean, she lost to great players. She lost to Bertens in Madrid and Kontaveit in Rome. So I don't really know what to expect from Caroline.
Again, in that quarter, though, Kontaveit is in that quarter. Right. I have it circled with a big wow beside it. Petra Kvitova and Kontaveit in the third round. That is unfortunate for both.
It is a wicked... That's what, a third round? A third round. So Kvitova beat Kontaveit at Madrid, which is, I guess, a little bit faster of a surface. That is a toss-up. And something I didn't realize until I was researching for this episode is that is it Kontaveit or Kontaveit?
I've heard both.
Okay.
We are exposing ourselves as not having done our due diligence.
I know. What I was going to say is that she lost to the eventual champion at Stuttgart, Madrid, and Rome. So really the three biggest clay court events on the women's side, she lost to the eventual champion each. That's not bad.
And then we also have Petra, who won Prague and then won Madrid. So she's coming in good form. Hopefully she's gotten some rest after that stretch of winning way more matches than maybe even she expected this spring on clay.
Right.
And so those two of the stellar standout players on clay this spring get each other in the third round, potentially wearing each other out before having to play one of Sevastova and Sloane Stephens, should she get that far. And then there's the Kasatkina-Wozniacki match as well. So really, from that third round section of that quarter, any of those women, you could make an argument for them.
Yes.
You could make an argument for Alizé Cornet, freed from the drug cloud.
The intercom has been fixed.
She's good to go, good to gizzle, as has been said in
who said
in
that?
a Jamaican dancehall song.
Oh, okay.
So Kvitova, Kontaveit, Sevastova, Stephens, Kasatkina, Carla, Cornet, Wozniacki.
Wow, pick. Those third rounds are crazy. They're not all going to happen, probably.
That entire bottom half for me is where it's at. And we talk about all those women in that section, and then there's another who you've pegged as a dark horse.
Yeah, Maria Sakkari, who would face possibly Carla Suarez in the third round. Sakkari has wins over Bertens and Pliskova, famously,
Yes.
at Rome. I feel that she's a player on the come-up. If these third rounds don't go to seed, I could see Sakkari slipping in there, definitely.
Mara Lawson also asks, Muguruza or Ostapenko, who will have the better tournament? And maybe the answer is neither. Because they've both got a tough ask.
Well, that brings up something I've been wanting to talk about. On the top half, the second quarter, which really belongs to Muguruza, technically by her seed, this is rough. because a lot of the floaters landed here. In my mind, the person who suffers the most is Pliskova, but followed by Muguruza. It's not easy. We've got Colleen, Rybarikova, Pavlyuchenkova, like on Muguruza's section.
Yes, which
but
is
at the
neither
bottom
here
half,
nor there. The bottom half of that quarter
Yeah.
is where it's at.
So we got Yulia Gergis, Serena Williams, Maria Sharapova, Karolina Pliskova.
What are you talking about, though? That's not the question. The question is Muguruza or Ostapenko.
Well, I'm saying, before the tournament, I was thinking that Ostapenko is in better form, and I was feeling that she was more primed to have a good tournament, have a deep run, maybe not match what she achieved last year, but, make a good name for herself. And I feel even more...
Make a good name for herself?
Well, maybe that's the wrong phrase.
Put in a good defense of her title.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Put in a good showing.
Show up and do the work. She doesn't have to defend to be a good player. But now that I see the draw, I feel even more strongly that this is a really tough ask for Muguruza to get through. That's where I was going to.
I'm so confused because you said that Ostapenko, you're like she's playing better and that she'll have the better chance to maybe have a good showing.
Yes, and now I feel even more strongly that's the
what
case.
You should have said.
That's what I did say.
Oh, I didn't get the more part. Okay. So we've talked about already that Muguruza plays Kuznetsova in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
That's her starting point of direness.
Right. And we don't really know what kind of form Svetlana is in, but she's a former champion here, and you just cannot count her out.
Mm-hmm. However, should she get past that, she has a third round with Pavlyuchenkova. Meanwhile, Ostapenko gets either Siniakova or Azarenka in the second round.
Yeah, I didn't mean to breeze right by that. That's not great.
That's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it becomes a tough question. Mind you, this question was submitted in advance of the draw.
Right.
So maybe Mara Lawson has some kind of crystal ball that she knew that this question would be even more apt after the draw.
Mm-hmm.
But pick your poison, truly. I do get the sense that Ostapenko her confidence is impregnable. You watched her at the draw ceremony lead Rafa into the room. Like they started walking together, and then Ostapenko was maybe buoyed by the wind in her flowing locks.
I mean,
just took off to the stage and answered all her questions as if she were racing to a finish line. She was like, "I'm here. I'm ready. Look at me. Look at me."
She had 50 pounds of hair. That beautiful lace dress. I love her style so much. The hair was giving me everything today. But yeah, she has this youthful
Patty
confidence.
Schneider wished she ever had.
Oh my God.
In hair.
Don't be rude. It's very hard to tame curly hair like that. You should know.
I do know.
But like you said, Ostapenko is overflowing with confidence, and it shows in her game. Like, this is just how she approaches a game of tennis. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that Muguruza is a bit more controlled, obviously, but she's somebody who can show up cold with terrible results in the warm-up tournaments to majors and put in like an untouchable performance. We've seen her do it before. Maybe
Sveta plays her into form.
Yeah, that's.
If you had
I'm
to
afraid
pick,
of that.
we have to answer here. I'm going to go with Ostapenko.
Who
will have the better tournament?
Oh, I'm going to say Ostapenko as well.
Okay. Jonathan Steiger asks us to pick two contenders, one who will benefit most and one who will be most handicapped by not having access to a coach during Roland Garros matches.
Mm-hmm. This is a great question. First of all, kudos to you. I was really this made me think really hard.
For me, I'm going to contradict what I just said about the Ostapenko Muguruza thing, but I do believe Muguruza could benefit from not having to deal with Samsumik on court.
That is an
having
excellent
him
observation.
Totally out of her mind's eye. She doesn't have to look at him on the court, and I think she may benefit from that because their relationship is fraught. It's tumultuous. Mm-hmm. It is up and down. It sees and it saws. It's topsy-turvy.
It is fiery. I would say sort of joking, but also serious, Putintseva would probably benefit from not speaking to her boyfriend during the matches because she doesn't want to hear about his flat Earth videos.
Oh my God.
That was her, right?
I've I'm not one of these people who have followed her every move and bow down to Poots. I've actively tried to ignore her as much as possible.
All right. Now, who would benefit most, or who would be most handicapped by not having a coach? I think a lot of people would probably say Simona Halep. Darren's coaching timeouts he's smart. Like, he's motivational, he breaks down tactics, he knows how to pump her up. I feel like they really understand each other. But the thing is, like, her game doesn't suffer at majors. Like, she made the final of the Australian, she was in the final of the French last year.
She was able to
But
navigate...
there is something at the French. I wouldn't say the Australian because she was totally exhausted. But the French, like, what's going on? She can win this tournament. I feel like anytime she enters Roland Garros and she's healthy, she can win. Like, she's a real contender.
She's considered the preeminent clay court player in tennis now.
Right.
I don't have an answer for who would be hindered most by not having a coach. I do think that Simona is an easy target.
That's fair.
It's a type of, at this point, the discussion and discourse surrounding her coaching relationship and coaching timeouts and visits on court, they swing whichever way the wind is blowing. So that's my take on that.
Okay. Our friend Fabian submitted this question. Aga Radwanska's absence at Roland Garros will break her streak of 47 consecutive majors. Is this the beginning of the end for Aga?
How old is she? 28?
Somewhere around there.
The short answer for me is no. The decline in her results over the last year has been shocking, frankly.
Right. Because she's been so consistent for damn near a decade.
She's typically able to just wizard her way to a small title here or there or get by in an event or two on her shared gifts. And that hasn't been able to happen. She's been injured as well.
Yeah.
That's always something to pay attention to when players stop having results that they're accustomed to. It's shocking to see her name so far down in the rankings. I don't. I think she's too young to write her off just yet.
I don't think it doesn't have to be the end for Aga, but I wouldn't blame her if through all these injuries and getting married that maybe her interest is waning. It's hard to stay motivated for more than half your life playing professional tennis. I wouldn't blame her at all.
I can speak to my personal life. When you reach your late 20s, you hit 30. I always tell people that 30 is such a milestone time in your life, especially because your goals and the way you see the world changes so vastly. It's like you wake up one day and you start to think about your retirement. It's such a stark contrast in the way you see things.
Yeah.
And not to say that because she has a man now and she's married that her goals should automatically change, but it dovetails with an intrinsic change that one goes through in their life as well. And battling through injuries, and then you have some disappointing results. Maybe your motivation is not necessarily less than it was before, but different. It doesn't mean that you're no longer interested in playing tennis, but the reasons for which you play tennis and the amount of time that you're willing to dedicate to it changes.
Right.
So maybe she's just figuring stuff out as well.
Maybe. And you mentioned, like, she's not quite 30 yet, but she has been a working professional for a lot longer than most of us have. So, you may be reaching a point where, okay, my career is finite, more finite than most people's careers, and I'm thinking about what's next. But again, I don't know Aga. We don't talk. Like, I don't know what she's thinking. But I don't think that it has to be the end of her career.
We have one more question pertaining to the women's draw that we're going to save for the very end of the episode after we've gone through the men's draw as well, because it pertains to this issue that came up in full force. It was in full flight this week. Serena Williams being the poster child for the WTA taking an axe to its current maternity leave policy or lack thereof. So we're going to deal with that at the end. Before we get into the men's draw, we're just going to talk a little bit more about some of the notable first round matches and things to look for, and maybe make a little bit of a prediction. Not a prediction.
Oh, I wasn't prepared for that.
No, not a, just like somebody who you could see doing something. Not just a dark horse, but if you had to pick somebody, who would you pick? Kind of thing.
Okay. The way I see these draws is that aside from, Pliskova Muguruza's quarter got stuck with a few dangerous floaters, but otherwise I feel that it's a pretty even-keeled women's draw. I wouldn't say that one side is extremely lopsided.
Ostapenko and Azarenka can consider themselves unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
Vika has a low ranking. It was always in the cards. Kvitova and Kontaveit, that is unfortunate in the third round.
Right, but it's a perfectly fair third round when seeds are playing, right? It's just that Kontaveit has done stuff.
Thank you for jumping in to finish my point.
Okay, well, just deal with it. It's called dialogue.
My point is, by and large, this was not a women's draw, or a men's draw for that matter, where you could necessarily feel aggrieved in ways that you could in the past. It's
right.
It's kind of a chill draw.
Like if you were feeling aggrieved, you may be looking for it.
Notable first round matches: Siniakova plays Azarenka, Konta plays Putintseva, Venus plays Wang Qiang, Cornet plays Sarah Irani in the first round.
The Why You Say Vamos special, or as Michel Jabbour said on Twitter, it was the Intercom versus Tortellini matchup, which you really did me one better. Like, that was hilarious.
That was the height of messiness. Kudos. Well played.
What other first rounds? There's Kazatkina Kanepi, Gavrilova Kirstea. We mentioned Ziegemund and Kalin. I have no idea what to expect from that.
Mladenovic plays Petkovic. Sabalenka plays Kiki Bertens. We didn't even talk about this yet. Yulia Gerges plays Cibulkova in the first round.
Who has been showing some signs of life recently. This just goes to show you how deep the WTA is, which you were talking about last episode. You feel that it's even deeper than it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago?
Yes, I firmly believe that.
A Bertens Sabalenka first round, I think, is indicative of that. Same with Cibulkova versus Gerges. Cibulkova, a former Grand Slam runner-up.
I was sitting there watching the draw unfold, and the first 5 minutes or so of the men's draw, I was struggling to find anything I cared about. Meanwhile, the women's draw is just like, oh, and then we'll leave the match that will probably have the most eyeballs on it for last. Kristina Pliskova against Serena Williams, which I think will be a fairly stern test of Serena, because Pliskova has had a decent clay court season.
Yeah,
she made the quarterfinals of Charleston, the quarters in Prague, round of 16s in Madrid, and just today lost, I believe, in 3 sets in the quarters of Nuremberg.
So it could be worse. It could definitely be better.
It was always going to be tough.
Right. I was just hoping it wasn't Serena versus Halep or
something mad
like
that. Should she get through Pliskova, then she plays Ash Barty in the second round, and then potentially Yulia Gerges in the third round, before Sharapova or the other Pliskova in the fourth round.
Yeah.
And then if you get to the quarterfinals and Muguruza is standing across the net from you, you know Muguruza is in some form.
Yeah.
And so it becomes that much more of a task. And then in the semifinals, you're likely looking at Simona Halep or Caroline Garcia.
Going back to Muguruza, who has beaten her twice at this very tournament, that is not something I would want to see. For Serena's sake. As a fan or as an observer, it'll probably be an exciting match. If it happens, there are so many conditionals in that. But Garcia is another one that I'm watching that I think really, really has a shot to get to the semis or the final.
She will have the added pressure of playing at home. That's always another consideration for the French players. But the argument really could be made for one of Halep or Garcia to be the finalist from that half.
Yes, because the women in the second quarter may just beat each other up so badly that they're hobbled. You know, that the players on the top will be a little more fresh.
As for Venus, it's tough to expect anything from her at this tournament. She has round of 16 points to defend. She is, not that it's anywhere remotely on her mind, but she is staving off Sloane Stephens for the title of current US number one.
Right.
She was able to do that again this week in absentia because Sloane Stephens lost her first match to Putintseva in Strasbourg or Nuremberg? Nuremberg, I believe.
Right. But remember, Sloane did not play Roland Garros last year. She still has a few tournaments to go before she starts defending points.
And Venus has a ton of points to defend, starting with fourth round points at the French Open. I think people take for granted from year to year that, oh, well, Venus didn't do anything last year. She actually did something last year. Did. She won the first set from Baczynski in that fourth round match, a repeat of her loss to her in 2016, same round, and then lost fairly easily the next two sets. She was very close to making a quarterfinal at the French Open last year, so she has those points to defend. As for what she's going to be encountering at this tournament, she's got Wang Qiang in the first round before playing another Wang or Martic in the second round. Martic is not an easy out. Before potentially Konta again. Those two seem to play each other all the time now.
Konta is not really feeling herself at this point on clay. I could see Venus getting to the round of 16. I think she has a good shout.
Before having to play Ostapenko or Vika.
Right.
Potentially. The thing is, we've seen Venus lose a lot of matches. She lost to Kontaveit twice, which is no shame.
Well, a lot of people have lost to her recently.
And she won one match in her clay preparation, but she's also spent a lot of time on the practice courts. She was able to get to Paris very early, probably met up with Serena as well. It helped that Serena was training with Muratoglu at his academy. And she's actually had a lot of time on Philippe Chatrier. That could play to her benefit.
And just today we learned that Serena and Venus accepted a wild card into the doubles draw.
Yes.
I was legitimately surprised by that.
I was not.
Really?
No, I kind of expected
Am I naive? I was very surprised at this stage in their careers that they wanted to play more.
I think Serena hasn't played. I think it had more to do with Serena probably. She hasn't played. Patrick had said leading up to this tournament she needed 5 weeks. She'll be ready. As much match practice as possible, she'll take it. Is my read on the situation. And they'll probably just withdraw if they get far. I mean, at this point there's no way that they can both withstand going deep into a tournament and doubles as well. It's just too much to ask. It's kind of like an insurance to stick around if they're out of singles.
A lot of people forget, and including us, forget Alina Svitolina. She's always under the radar, even though she just won Rome.
Listen, I have her circled here.
Yeah. But we haven't even mentioned her name once yet.
No.
And we're getting toward the end of the women's draw. She could face Ostapenko in the quarterfinals. That's who she's seeded to face. I mean, the sky's the limit for Svitolina. She can beat literally anyone. She will put it together at a slam eventually. It could be this one. I have no idea. But, you always have to watch her.
There's no reason, based on this draw, to expect anything other than a Halep-Svitolina final. If you were to say, oh, well, let's see how it plays out. That makes the most sense, truly.
Right.
But I do think that the winner of Kontaveit-Kvitova could go very deep. And I also feel like the winner of Halep-Garcia, should it get to that, could be your eventual champion. Not that those are particularly groundbreaking things to say.
So that was your prediction?
As much as a prediction as it is.
Okay. Now, as a rule, I tend to never predict things for Serena. I don't want to put it out into the universe and be proven wrong. So, I am feeling a Garcia final. I'm not sure who she will face, but that's my prediction.
I think a lot of folks will expect and look forward to that Serena Sharapova fourth round, and I just don't see it happening. And I feel
like Pliskova will take her out.
I do as well. Pliskova has shown enough and then some on clay to be able to handle her, I believe.
Because I think that Carolina has the accuracy that Sharapova is lacking at the moment.
Shall we move on to the men's draw?
We'll start up with the questions again. So, reiterating question from Master Ace and Mara Lawson, who are our dark horse picks on the men's side?
I'll go first this time.
Okay.
I have the winner of Fabio Fognini and Kyle Edmund as the dark horse, the biggest dark horse for the men's side.
Okay.
Edmund has the, I don't know if it's unfortunate, but he does have an interesting first round against Alex de Minaur. Two young guns that folks definitely will be watching in the first round. Assuming Edmund gets through that and Fognini gets through Pablo Andujar, who is on the comeback trail, they would meet in the third round, and they both have the ability, I would say, to make a deep run. Edmund has been there or thereabouts, and even when he's losing tight matches to people who probably should still beat him, and he feels like he's on the cusp of another big run. We saw him make a deep run in Australia, and he could be primed to do it again.
Mm-hmm. And he has wins over Djokovic and Goffin this year on clay.
It also helps that he has, to my mind, the entire top half of the draw, you could say, is wide open outside of Nadal getting through to the semifinals. It is a fairly nice draw for Rafa. Having to play Shapovalov potentially in the fourth round, notwithstanding. But then you get to the quarterfinals and you should expect to play somebody like Schwartzman. But in the quarter with Fabio and Edmund, there's Cilic as a top seed. I see him now, and he may see this as a disservice to him because he's actually won a slam. But he's performing now as Burdick did for so many years, getting to the back end of tournaments consistently, but not necessarily winning.
Right. Like a notch better.
Yes.
He's made more Grand Slam finals.
There's Del Potro in the same quarter, but he's coming in with serious question marks about his health. Nobody knew right up until the last minute if he would play. He still may not play. And there's Isner.
who we're being told is Rafa's biggest competition.
The one person who could take down Rafa and clay is John Isner. He's there in that quarter. He could potentially play Del Potro in the fourth round. And if it plays to seed, then there's Cilic and Del Potro in the quarterfinals. But in fact, it could be Fabio, it could be Edmund against Isner, against Ramos Vignolas, against Burdick. I mean,
against Julian Beneteau.
Yeah,
who knows?
Who is to say? So those are my two dark horse picks.
Okay. Mine on the men's side, funny you should ask, because before I saw the draw, one of them was Joao Sousa, but he could face Nadal in the second round. I felt that Sousa had broken through. He won the title at Estoril, and he was primed to do something. But I don't know. I don't really see him beating Nadal, so I'm going to take that one back. I too had Edmund. I have Kohlschreiber. I think that Kohlschreiber he's been on a very good run, and I think he has a really good shot to make the quarters, to be honest.
However, he does play Borna Coric in the first round.
Yeah, that's the thing, which I see as a pretty bad draw for both. Borna is very good on clay, but Kohlschreiber has had good results lately. He made the final in Munich, lost to Sasha Zverev, who's beaten almost everybody this clay season. Diego Schwartzman could be Kohlschreiber's, round of 16 opponent, and Diego really hasn't done anything.
Third round.
Oh, you're right, sorry. His third round opponent. And Diego hasn't had a great season the past few months.
He's been killing it on Instagram.
He has, yes. And then the other one was Nishikori, which I feel is cheating, because he is a player with a certain pedigree. He's not really a dark horse, right?
Mara Lawson also asks, who will be Nadal's fiercest competition?
Mm-hmm. She asked this before the draw came out. Now that the draw is out, I think it's Shapovalov. And if Nadal gets through Dennis, I would say that Cilic is probably his fiercest competition. Like you said, Cilic is filling the Berdych, spot. But he is a tough out. He's a tough out for Rafa everywhere but clay, I would say.
But for Cilic to be his fiercest competition, he would have to get to the semifinals.
Yes.
Which is already a tough ask for him.
Okay.
And you get to a semifinal at Roland Garros against Rafa Nadal, you best be playing the best tennis of your life. I think his toughest competition will be the Shapovalov match, only because it will absolutely be, if he gets there, such a big test for Dennis as to where he is in his development. And if he is as talented as we've been told, as we suspect, if he's ready to make a big breakthrough, as he's bound to eventually, this is the type of big stage where somebody with his gifts could seize the moment.
Mm-hmm. You notice we haven't even mentioned the possibility of Jack Sock filling that spot.
Fuck that
even
noise.
though he
Fuck that
is
noise.
seated
Yeah.
in that spot,
No.
but he has had an abysmal
I
season.
am actively looking forward to when Jack Sock is no longer seated at tournaments. Diego, you have to give him his props at this point. He is somebody who could push Rafa. He somehow managed to get so much power on his shots from such a little frame.
Yeah.
And then, assuming he gets to the final, assuming either man gets to the final, it's either Zverev or Novak. Those are the other two men who could really push
Okay.
Rafa in terms of what the draw is going on. So those four men are the ones I would pick. Shapovalov, Schwartzman, Zverev, and Novak.
So you don't see Dominic Thiem pushing Rafa if he got to the final.
Dominic Thiem has got 99 problems and Rafa Nadal ain't one at this point.
Well, Rafa Nadal is like all of them, isn't he?
Well, he has 99 problems before he gets to Rafa Nadal.
That's true.
Our next question, again from Jonathan Steiger. He wants each of us to speculate on two of the big four and how effective they might be as coaches in the future. Let's just talk about all four. And part of being effective is the willingness to do the job, right? I just can't see Federer sitting in somebody's box being their coach on tour. Like, surely there's something more statemently for him to do.
Like being the president of the ITF?
The president of being like God's advisor. Put it that way.
Maybe the CEO of Rolex. I think Federer would probably be an excellent coach, but I just could never see him doing it.
I don't know how excellent he would be when you have somebody who is so naturally gifted. Obviously, he works very hard,
point.
but when you're so naturally gifted, the amount of work that it takes to get not so gifted players to be their best, I just don't know if he would have the fortitude to stick through it. If that makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
But I would think that back in the day, people couldn't see Ivan Lendl, for example, being a great coach because he's not expressive. He wasn't seen as a very generous personality.
But the workmanlike nature of his game would lend itself to the grind of being a coach on tour. That's something that you could see him enjoying.
Right.
Which is not something that I would see somebody like Federer doing in the twilight of his career life. I would imagine him enjoying the fruits of his spoils as he should.
Right. Okay. I think Nadal would be too bossy.
No.
Plain and simple.
Not very good. Do it again.
Did you see Rafa stage managing the rain delay?
Yes. Oh my God.
I mean, he was telling everybody where to go, pull the tarp back this many centimeters. He was telling the ball boys where to go. I mean, he was choreographing the whole thing. Like,
he would make a good director. Maybe he should get into film and direct films.
He would be one of those difficult directors. He has obsessive tendencies, as we know.
Yes.
I just think it's Rafa's way or the highway.
Yeah.
Like, you would need a very mentally strong student.
I think there would need to be assistant coaches He does have his academy, which would lend itself to training. He could have the person stay at the academy and train year round or what have you. But
that's not to say
these
that
people. But these people become so great because of their wild idiosyncrasies.
yes,
Because of how intense they have to be, and so to be able to dial that back to then help a lesser than get to a quarter of your powers in your prime.
right.
It's tough.
And Rafa's technique is not something you want to teach to a kid or even a professional player. It's unorthodox. It's probably not healthy.
I could absolutely see Andy Murray as a coach. I could see him being
Definitely.
a coach of any WTA player and making it work.
Yep. Well, he had really the best example in
Yeah.
his own household, right? He has Judy Murray, who is, I mean, just a magnanimous presence. She wants to share what she knows about tennis to give opportunities to kids.
And I think Andy would enjoy the misery that his pupil would go through losing. He would enjoy it in a sense. You know, he'd be able to relate to it. All those losses that he's picked up to Djokovic in those finals, no shade. But that type of stuff prepares you to be able to go through it with another person as well.
And Novak is so articulate and so smart. We've talked about him as the brain of the Big Four. I think that he would flourish as a coach because he's very analytical.
Not to beat a dead horse here, but if we are to buy into the whole business of Novak needing to be loved and all that stuff, a second coming of Novak as a coach, as a super coach, that kind of royal tour throughout the year of being in the spotlight and taking credit for the success, not in a sinister way, but giving the credit for somebody's success is something I could see him doing. And I also think he's probably been through enough coaches at this point, all shade, to be able to bring the best of many coaches into one for somebody else.
Well, and to know what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Thank you to Dr. Scholes, because without fail, you always bring us a fuck, marry, kill that we can just devour. And thank you for keeping it French. This was a French Open preview.
Very
and
topical.
You went and did the business. You brought us 3 Frenchmen for this fuck, marry, kill.
And as we know, the French team is very deep. No pun intended.
I thought you were going to say very fuckable. Well, they're probably very fuckable, very marryable, and very killable. So it works on all levels.
I would like to bestow all 3 on probably one person.
Who would that be?
Oh, no, not on this list. But you could see all of them being difficult, attractive, and loving at the same time, right?
The 3 men in question are Luca Pouille, Jérémy Chardy, and Pierre-Hugues Hébert.
All right. So the fuck would be Pouille. Like, that's an absolute no-brainer for me. I mean, he's just quite literally perfect. Like the Greek god Apollo.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay.
I hear you.
I see no faults in that statement. And I would agree. I would marry Pierre. And I would have to kill Chardy because I find nothing about him attractive in any way. Sadly.
It's sad because
he does nothing for me.
He seems like a really nice guy.
Yes.
And he's not unattractive at all.
No.
But
just not for
you
me.
gave us a very difficult choice here.
Yeah. I think he knew to keep Tsonga out of this because that would have just been too much for you to handle.
Well, because do you F him or do you M him?
I think you kill everybody else if you're you, just to be sure.
Right.
I think he realized it would have been skewed. So who would you marry?
Oh, Pierre-Hugues.
Oh, so it's the same.
Oh, so we agree?
Pierre just looks like he would wake up and cook me breakfast.
He would sing. Remember he serenaded everyone at the Davis Cup dinner? He just seems like a very a loving,
sweet
gentleman
man.
guy. Yeah.
Let's go through the rest of the men's draw. In terms of interesting first-round matches, we already talked about Church and Kohlschreiber. Fognini gets Andujar. Man, Vasek Pospisil, who has been traipsing around the world on the ITF circuit, building his ranking back up, he has to play Martin Fucsovics in the first round, who just took out Stan Wawrinka in Geneva.
Damn. John Isner plays the winner of the U.S. wildcard, Noah Rubin.
We already talked about Kyle Edmund and Alex de Minaur. Jeremy Chardy, we let him play his first round match before we kill him. He gets Berdick in the first round. From a North American perspective, the one that stands out is Francis Tiafoe and Sam Querrey.
Mm-hmm.
And from our perspective, it's one that we want to see Francis do very well in.
Right. I mean, Querrey has been abysmal so far this year. I don't see any reason that Francis cannot win that. And
maybe having sex with Luka will push him forward to beating Daniel Medvedev in the first round. Guillermo Garcia Lopez gets Stan Wawrinka in this crazy section. I said before that, you couldn't really argue with this draw. It was kind of chill in every regard, but this is really the one section that's kind of just a bit much.
Yeah, Dominic has his hands full. I mean, he could get Stefanos Tsitsipas in the second round.
I blame you. Because you tweeted, oh, look, Dominic is so lucky he got a qualifier in the first round. And then 2 minutes later, here comes Stefanos Tsitsipas.
Mm-hmm. Stefanos, who you may remember, was the finalist in Barcelona. Dominic played Lyon and lost.
Today.
He could, I mean, if he gets through that, there's Muller, there's Nishikori K. The Bellamy quarterfinal is awaiting Sasha Zverev. That's not very nice for Dominic Thiem to have to face Sasha in the quarterfinals.
And it would be Sasha's very first slam quarterfinal.
Mm-hmm.
And to do it, he might have to get by either Pouille or Stan Wawrinka. Which if Stan has made the fourth round, he may have played himself into form if he's healthy.
Right.
And then at the top half of that quarter, Thiem, assuming he gets by Tsitsipas, gets Müller in the third round, then potentially Kei Nishikori in the fourth round, who there's been a lot of debate about his kit. I'm on the side of I absolutely love that kit.
Whose?
Nishikori, with the brown shorts. I've seen it referred to as doo-doo pants.
Oh.
With the yellow and, and the red. Yep. It's different, and I like it. So there's that. I have opined.
I saw the Kei Nishikori cutout at the Toronto Uniqlo store, and I felt very heard.
You felt heard?
I felt like tennis is here, and they're giving it to us.
I will say this, though. You own Joe's Adidas shorts.
I do, yeah.
I tried on Kei's Uniqlo shorts, and the fit is just not good. It just is not.
Well,
they're way too long. They're way too narrow. They need to do better.
Joe and I, we can wear similar.
You have similar
shorts
assets.
What else? In the third quarter, still in the bottom half here, Djokovic does not have a terrible road here.
No,
not at all.
We're done with the top half, right? I think we kind of exhausted that.
Yeah,
for the most part. So the last bit to get through here is this top half of the bottom half. The third...
just say the third quarter.
The third quarter.
We still haven't mastered this after all these years.
Goffin, I have this circled. Goffin gets potentially Monfils in the third round, which, that's just a whole lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun. I might get up for that one. Nick Kyrgios is a dangerous floater there. Not for somebody who could win the title, I don't think that's in the cards, but for somebody who could do some damage earlier on to some other folks and then kind of fizzle out. He has a qualifier before playing Cecchinato or Koppel, then Carreño Busta in the third round, before Goffin in the fourth round. And then should he get to the quarters, then it's potentially Nole or Grigor. Nole and Grigor in the fourth round, that is marquee. That is something to watch.
Yeah. Because Grigor has been, he's been in and out lately. He did make the semifinal of Monte Carlo and lost to Nadal, but he had just kind of crappy results at Madrid and Rome. Lost in his first round in both.
But still, if Novak isn't quite there yet, Dimitrov at his best could make it an entertaining match. That said, if we were looking for two people who aren't necessarily favorites to make the final, I think you go with Goffin, who is my pick to make the final, or Kei Nishikori.
I can't disagree there, and I can't really offer you any searing hot takes. This men's draw is just not really doing it for me.
Do you have a prediction? I mean, I just said Goffin is the one to make the final. So
God,
you're up
I mean,
now, you're up on deck.
The thing is, like, it is so hard to kind of vote against Novak Djokovic. It's just that I don't know what he's going to look like in a best-of-5 scenario across 2 weeks. I really don't know. The performance against Nadal was very encouraging, but before that, it was just not great. You know, through most of the clay season, it was pretty bad. So
I'm taking a take it as it comes approach to Novak right now. If he shows me a big result in a slam, then I will take note and come check you next time around. So are you saying you have nothing to add? Nobody?
No, well, if I were putting money down, I would probably say Dominic to make it one round further than his best and reach a final.
Which is the semis of the last two events.
Right.
Okay. That brings us to the end of our draw analysis, which I'm sure was riveting for all of you. It's absolutely not our favorite episode of the year, doing these draw previews, because it's all a lot of hearsay.
Well, and it falls apart so quickly.
Yeah,
sometimes on the very first day.
Who likes to put their thoughts out in public and have them disproven and made to look like idiots within hours?
But that's what we're doing for y'all.
So appreciate that.
Don't hate, appreciate.
We understand what the market is and what folks are in the market for. This is what y'all want. We bring a little bit of nuance, not too much hardlining to the quote-unquote predictions or non-predictions. And, you know, a little bit of levity, as Miss Mariah would say.
Brings that levity.
We do's.
Now, for a little bit of gravity, we have to talk about this controversy that has made its way into popular culture and the mainstream press this week.
That has Serena's name in Ivanka Trump's mouth.
Ivanka Trump.
Ivanka fucking Trump.
Nobody needed you to vouch for the queen, Serena. You know, because what she has, she earned. Think about that.
There is so much truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about this before in a previous episode, and while we forget everything we say within minutes of having said it, we're pretty sure that we came down on the side of, I know what we've talked about privately, but on the show, we're pretty sure we said that absolutely there needs to be better protections for women on the WTA tour who want to start a family mid-career.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That
was up to and including protected seating.
Correct. And that we were pretty firm in our discussion of that. Since we've had the benefit of listening, frankly, to a lot of women, varying responses from many women who fall at different spots along the spectrum of opinions with respect to this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have the same thoughts. I know my take is a little bit different in that I feel like there should be some caveats in terms of how long the seating is allowed to be available, right?
Okay.
Still, these are not things that I feel that I as a man should have firm opinions on when this issue is still evolving, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's been most galling to me is the folks, men, and to be honest, largely gay men, which is even doubly disappointing, who are mocking in the way that they're handling this issue and presenting their opinions.
Right.
Because this in no way, shape, or form affects you, nor is it something that you can in any way, shape, or form relate to. It's entirely abstract. And we talk about all the time about what it's like to be an ally and how to be an ally, and this is absolutely not that. It is so far
that is true.
from being that. When, as a gay person, you are not able to carry a child yourself, maybe you should defer to women, even though they're not professional athletes, who have opinions on what it's like to carry a child and what it may be like for a woman who's carried a child to then return to tennis. And there are also women who have not had children, whose opinions are just as valid, but absolutely more valid than yours. You know, it's about knowing your place in the hierarchy of opinions and knowing when to keep your fucking mouth shut, frankly, and listen to other people.
Since we talked about this on the podcast, it was a while ago and I almost forgot what we had said. And I have made a conscious effort to stay out of the debate entirely.
You haven't been issuing hot takes on Twitter?
No, and it was intentional. And I was trying to take my own advice. Like I said last week when we talked about Françoise Abanda's statement, I said, if you don't understand, take a step back and listen for a moment. And if you don't want to listen, then you probably shouldn't comment. And so what I did throughout this whole protected seating thing is I took a step back and I listened. And I'm not going to issue any opinion on the matter in this episode. Okay. But I think there are a few things that we should lay out, a few issues that deserve discussion. So one piece of information that we didn't know the first time we talked about it is that the WTA Players Council has voted on this before. So Courtney Nguyen on Twitter told everyone, like, listen, if you want to have this debate, that's great, but you should know this piece of information, right? And
also Twitter is absolutely not the right medium to be having this conversation.
Yes. So the Players Council voted on it and rejected it. Importantly, it was packaged in basically the same vote as protected seating for players returning from injury, which we know now is a very different issue. Mm-hmm. Darren Cahill kind of pushed back at her, and it was all very friendly, but Darren Cahill's been out here advocating for this protected seating for a while. Now, the question that arises for me is, should this be something that is voted upon by the Players' Council at large? Do the other players, most of whom have not had children, do they care if seating is protected when women have returned from maternity? Mm-hmm. These are women who they are in competition with. They're fighting with them for money and for ranking points and for titles. So to me, of course, the majority of the Players' Council would vote this motion down. Like, it makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. But is it something that should be voted on? To me, if we had a genuine bargaining unit, that's something, like, this is an issue that you fight for in bargaining. Like, these are workers' rights, basically. Better maternity leave, better protections for workers. Like, those aren't something that the employer puts up for a vote. Mm-hmm. It's something that you work out through bargaining.
If we accept, and we absolutely accept, that tennis is a workplace and should be treated as such, akin to your regular 9-to-5 workplace. Obviously, there are ways in which that glove doesn't fit.
Of course, yeah.
But a woman having a professional tennis career is not the same as a man having a professional tennis career. And we celebrate all these men when they become fathers. Say, oh my God, being a dad is such a good thing for his tennis game. Well, what about the women? You can't tell me that if you are in your mid-20s, for how many women is it a complete non-starter even thinking about a family if you're 24, 25? If you've spent your entire life playing tennis from the age of, say, 3 or 5 years old, your 20s is your money-making period of your life. And to interrupt that, to have a child, or to say, well, I'll play till I'm 30 and then retire and then have a family, it's a very limiting, pre-existing way of viewing one's career. And we've seen an absolute shift in the nature of women's tennis and women's careers in the last decade, to the point where women are playing well into their 30s. And folks now say, well, this wouldn't have been an issue if it wasn't Serena Williams. And to that I say, so what? So what that we did not have the fortitude and the foresight and the smarts to make this a big issue when Azarenka was coming back, or when Kleisters was coming back,
or Mandy Manila,
yeah,
or Yvonne Goolagong,
or any of these players,
woman ranked outside of the top 100. You're right that we did not talk about it.
We did not talk about that, but that doesn't mean that we were excluded or precluded from talking about it now. And this is how change happens. You might fight it now, but once it's there, it's there. The women who then come up in 15 years and say, okay, yeah, I'm going to take 2 years off. I'm kind of burnt out. I'm going to have a kid. I'm going to come back. Like, that's an option for them then. Mm-hmm. Where it becomes tricky, it's this idea that by making those protections for somebody like Serena or whoever, it's more fraught now for Serena because she would be the number one seed, right? And then the 32nd right. seed would be bumped. And in this case, it would be Buzarnescu, who, as Courtney Nguyen had pointed out, has had a phenomenal year to get to this position. I think somebody else dropped out and said, no, she's 31. Buzarnescu. Okay. What about that person? And I think that if we have a situation where the parameters are known and defined and limited, that it becomes less of an issue when folks know what they're getting themselves into ahead of time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, say Serena comes back in January. What about a situation where you can exercise a protected seeding for a limited number of events? You can do it for 2 Grand Slams.
Right. Like more limited than the protected ranking.
Maybe you don't have to do them at the 2 Grand Slams that you're first eligible for or first want to play. Maybe the first one, Serena comes back in January and she says, well, I don't want to waste my protected seeding here. I want to use it at the French Open and Wimbledon. I'm going to play myself into form here. Maybe see how it goes. But after a certain time, then that protection, that protected seeding is no longer at your disposal.
If you work in Canada, for example, you have far more expansive maternity leave policy than in the US. Women here can expect 52 weeks, and now it's actually been increased to 18 months, and the benefit is just extended over 6 more months. This is where the Western world has gone, and the US is utterly backward in comparison. I think the WTA suffers in comparison because it is headquartered in Florida in the US, and I mean, in the US, workers' rights have been eroded consciously for the past century. It's been a concerted effort by politicians, mostly Republican, to undermine the rights of workers to collectivize and bargain in good faith with their employers. So I think that this exists in that sort of atmosphere in the United States. The WTA is an international organization, but it is still very American in character.
But it is different in that within the framework of what you just said, with organizations and politicians in North America, in the US, working to undercut workers' rights, that's posited big picture against corporations. Like, what about corporations' rights? You know, corporations making money.
Well, because this issue the Supreme Court has ruled that corporations are people.
But this issue doesn't directly affect the WTA's earning power. This is more an issue among staff, right? Which is a little bit different.
That's true. But what I'm saying is that the WTA, for whatever reason, is not super inclined to empower their workers to collectivize. Because there's no distinction between employer and employee. The employer, the WTA, represents or purports to represent both the tournaments and players, which is impossible in my opinion.
If we attach unionizing with this issue, that's many steps too far.
Right.
So what we have to be looking at here is a question to be asked is why, and I think I asked this on the last time we talked about it, why wouldn't it be in the best interest of the WTA to have, in this case, Serena in your tournament longer? From a self-sustaining perspective, right? This is you protecting your brand. Obviously, it's not an issue if, no offense, but Mandy Manel is in the same position. So it's this balance of, in one aspect, you're able to help yourself as a tour by giving Serena more opportunities to go deep into tournaments. And in another way, you're able to help your staff.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like, because the balance is often skewed in favor of the corporation when their hand is forced to make a decision, right? Or like when they want to make a decision on something like this. Like, well, how does it benefit us? In this instance, to me, it benefits both, in my probably naive opinion.
And to be clear, the ITF is the one who runs Roland Garros. And they do have the right, as far as I understand, to seed how they like.
Which they chose not to. It seems like Wimbledon will. But this is more of an issue for the WTA in general, with the other tournaments.
If you want to do more reading about this topic, I would suggest first reading our friend Bad Toss's essay about the topic. She's at badtoss.wordpress.com. Excellent writer. I learned a lot from reading her work. Also, the USA Today ran a story recently about how the French Open is punishing her. I mean, there is a lot of opposing views out there that I encourage you to read as well. Again, I don't want to fall on one side. I kind of want to extract myself from the conversation and let other people take this on. Because I don't see this as my role. I see my role in this conversation as listening and letting more qualified people do the work.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I realize I have given some opinions here.
Well, I mean...
it is a podcast.
Right.
But I absolutely agree with you in that, I don't know, but there's the one school of thought which, if you're a man, you shouldn't have an opinion about this to begin with, even if you're in support of it. But especially if you're going to say that women shouldn't have protected seatings, you need to sit this one out. Absolutely sit this one out.
Yeah. I think in some... Are we talking about this only because it's Serena? Yes. That's an unequivocal yes. That's why we're talking about it. Does that mean the conversation shouldn't happen? No. Like, that's where I want to leave it. Let's get past that. Yep, it's only because Serena is Serena. That's why we're talking about this in the first place. And unfortunately, nobody talked about it with Bondarenko or with any of the many women who have had children and come back to tennis. And that's too bad. And that's on us as well. But now that the conversation is happening, talk about it.
Vika was asked about in Indian Wells, I believe. Check Courtney Nguyen's Twitter. There's the transcripts from that, where she gives a very equivocal opinion about what's going on. Like, there's a lot of things at play. She's on the Players' Council. Like, there are a lot of things being considered. And to this issue of fairness, which is one of the big things that's used to undercut this push, right? It's unfair until nobody's thinking about it, until the rule is changed, until we have another way of doing things. You know, I weigh both sides, and I don't know.
Well, the other possibility is that women who are not, say, you aren't ranked number 1 when you left the game for your maternity leave. If you were ranked, say, number 50, you could get a protected seating in a small tournament.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it doesn't have to only help the 1% of tennis.
There's a lot to consider. Just consider it. And listen to folks outside of us.
So why don't we leave it there? We're probably going to be back with you for kind of a mid-French Open
at some
episode.
point.
Yeah, I can't promise when, but it will happen. Thanks for listening.
I'm Jonathan. You can find me on Twitter at tennis_John.
I'm James at ElliotJMR.
The podcast is at The Body Serve on Twitter as well as on Instagram. Thank you for everybody who's reached out with questions for our mailbag section of this episode. Thanks to everybody who's written reviews on iTunes recently. We absolutely welcome those going forward. If you haven't yet, please do. Till next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.